a special episode of the ID Talk podcast. My name is Peter Counter, and I'm the editor-in-chief of FindBiometrics and Mobile ID World, and I am excited to welcome you to the second part of our State of Enterprise Biometrics mega podcast event, presented in association with our premier security partner, ISC West. ISC West has been postponed due to concerns about the COVID-19 pandemic, but the converged security conversation is more critical than ever. That's why we are bringing the Enterprise Biometrics conversation online with long-form expert interviews, an extended podcast panel, and this latest event, the State of the Industry Survey. Readers of FindBiometrics and Mobile ID World know that our live conference coverage is punctuated by show floor interviews, and in lieu of a show floor, we have reached out to identity tech companies remotely to ask them one key question. What's the biggest identity and authentication issue in the modern enterprise? In part 2 of this virtual show floor event, you will hear answers from Aratek, Alcatraz AI, and Inspirit IoT. So now, without further ado, let's hear what the experts have to say about the state of enterprise biometrics right here on the ID Talk podcast.
Hi everyone, I'm Samuel from Aratek Technology. I'm the VP Sales for International Market. So basically, I'm responsible for sales and marketing in Aratek for international business. So I've been in this industry for almost 20 years. We start from software, hardware for biometric product, and now we move our step to security industry and also adding more software function with our hardware setting. So right now, I think we can see a lot of different type of authentication technology in the market. So the challenge of to the customer is there are too many choice for them. So for the company who provide authentication product, we need to offer the easy to use solution. That means the user, they just need to focus what they want to use. They don't need to learn how to use that. They just use, for example, for facial recognition, for fingerprint, for card reading, scanning, this kind of things. We can combine them together. So the company or so the customer, they can do it easily. So there is no learning curve, and the total owner cost will be much lower than before.
Hi, this is Vince Gaderzev, CEO of Alcatraz AI. We are a frictionless, secure facial authentication company out of Silicon Valley, working on securing physical access control for large enterprise and government. So the question, what's the biggest identity and authentication issue in modern enterprise? It's a multifaceted issue. First, how do you collect the identities of people right now in modern enterprise? It's a little bit of a disconnected problem. You may have pictures of employees as they're coming for the first time in the office, maybe batch numbers with their names connected to some access control. You may have a lot of HR data for the employees as well, but usually all the data lives in different platforms. It's disconnected, and many times enterprises have difficulties merging and using one part of the data with another to make sense of the full picture of that employee. Another issue is how you authenticate people, which is also a little disconnected. Authentication usually happens on a very basic level with just their badge. Very recently, in the last few years, biometrics have risen up, and now employees can authenticate using fingerprint, iris, and facial recognition. This also is a little bit disconnected, not only because the biometric identity needs to be very secure, stored in specific locations with privacy and networking security requirements that are being added every day by those enterprises and government. But usually companies have challenges keeping the information in a way to then comply with government requirements such as GDPR or the California Privacy Acts. There is no easy solution to this problem. So What large enterprises have been working on recently, in my experience, have been rules through their AppSec requirements, networking requirements that specifically list how different vendors that will handle identities and authentication of users will actually collect the data security and most likely not even have access to it, but only the company, the end consumer, which is the actual company, will have access. Everything needs to be encrypted. Everything needs to be stored on-prem. Usually, biometrics are not allowed to live in the cloud in many large enterprises. And we expect in the next couple of years, the U.S. and Canada and in general many countries in the world to follow a lot of what Europe did with GDPR to set specific rules on how identity and authentication is handled. Until then, the story is really varying per specific set of industries, verticals, companies, and it's really difficult for someone like us who creates technology and sells technology to actually create and sell the same technology into different verticals. Everyone has a different requirement because there are no set rules, there are no set laws currently. That's what I think is the biggest challenge, how we can merge and create a common rule on how not only biometrics, but just identity in general for employees is handled. So everyone knows what they're doing, what they're allowed not to do, and the technology created by outside companies is up to spec. So there is no ambiguity around it.
I'm Kyle Rubno. I'm the CTO of Inspirit IoT. In my opinion, the biggest identity and authentication issue in the modern enterprise is privacy. Implementing all of the applications that we need in the modern enterprise really relies on facial recognition as a key component of identity and authentication across multiple touch points. Yet, too many systems rely on sending this information to the cloud in order to build that application, and that's simply not acceptable. In following all of the regulations of GDPR, HIPAA, of a mishmash of regulations worldwide, and doing it not just because it's required, but because it's the right thing to do, to keep our information private and make it so that everyone can see that value of facial recognition systems for biometrics, yet without having to give away their personal privacy to make it happen.
And so concludes part 2 of our State of Enterprise Biometrics mega podcast event. Stay tuned to ID Talk in the coming days as we hear from other leaders in the enterprise security market. Before we go, I would like to thank Susan Stover and Sasha Kevik for conducting the interviews for this event. Our podcast theme music is by Logomrad. I am your host, Peter Counter. Thank you for listening to the ID Talk podcast.